I've heard that too.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. I've actually had Botox in my back before.
Really?
Yeah. For a pinched nerve in my neck that was making my back have problems. Yeah, they shut my back up full of Botox all over the place.
And it worked?
Kind of. It doesn't lie. It was better.
Well,
But I had a very youthful back for a couple of weeks.
nothing wrong about that.
No.
A youthful back. Ooh,
I know.
what would that be like?
Oh gosh. I didn't get down to the town office to pick up my packet, so I'm reading along online tonight, which will make me keep looking sideways.
Yeah, I picked up the packet, but I read it online anyway. But what I discovered reading it online was you really do need this thing.
Oh, in paper?
Yeah, because it was sideways.
Yeah, that was hard to read. I did read it that way, but I read it on my iPad and laid my iPad flat and just turned it.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. Just people can look at you funny if you're looking at your iPad sideways, but that's what you got to do.
Go like this.
Well,
yeah.
you guys have to remember that Kathy's on vacation, and I had to do that agenda stuff, and I'm not as good at it as she is.
Yeah. Well, we wondered where was the slack on this thing. So you're the slacker.
That was me.
Okay. Well, it was still all there, wasn't it?
Guys, could you see me or hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to be like this for about 20 minutes. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay.
Good.
Well, in some instances, that's a good thing, Kim. I don't have my best hair on tonight, so. Yeah. Hey, Dusty.
Hey, Terry. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
I like it that Dusty always stands for these meetings. There's something that's very commanding about that. Yeah. It helps to, give more authority to the beard and the whole look. You have we're getting something. Is that Rick?
Are you saying he's bossy? How can we interpret this?
Oh, well.
All right. So looks like we have everybody. So we'll get going, calling the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Just wanted to add 2 things to other board business. One, to discuss the possibility of returning to in-person meetings. And then 2, to nail down the budget workshop dates. So, do we need to vote to put those on there? I can never remember.
For other business? No, you just bring it up.
That's what I thought.
Anybody can bring up anything at other board business.
Okay, thank you.
Good
All
to
right.
know.
So moving on to approval of treasurer's warrants, payroll warrants for February 4th, 2022 and February 11th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Pam, seconded by Terry. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, calling for a vote. Terry.
Yes.
Pam.
Yes.
Dusty.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Accounts payable warrants for February 8th, 2022 and February 15th, 2022. Open for motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sorry.
Moved by Pam, seconded by Terry. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, calling for a vote. Pam,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and I vote yes, motion passes 5-0. Number 2, approval of minutes for February 1st, 2022. Open for a motion.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
I wasn't there, so I'm not gonna move, approve, or
Oh,
second, or, and I'm abstaining, just so.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay. Moved by Terry, seconded by Kim. Any questions, discussion, edits? Okay, hearing none, calling for a vote. Terry,
yes.
Pam,
Abstain.
Dusty,
Yes.
Kim,
Yeah.
and I vote yes. Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Do not have any special presentations or awards tonight. Moving down to committee appointments. Larry Rhines for the Broadband Committee. Open for a motion.
I move to approve.
A second.
And moved by Pam, seconded by Terry. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, calling for a vote. Terry,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
I vote yes, motion passes 5-0. H. Carl Olson for the Planning Board, a reappointment for a 3-year term, and to the Ordinance Review Committee, a reappointment for a 3-year term. I'm open for a motion.
I move to approve.
I second.
Any questions, discussion? Hearing none. Calling for a vote. Terry,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
I vote yes, motion passes 5-0. We do not have any public hearings tonight. We're down to number 6, public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on non-agenda items?
Sarah?
Yeah.
Before you go on, I think Carl Olson had 2 applications in, one for the planning board and one for the ordinance. Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you're doing now?
We did that in one motion.
Oh, in one
Yeah.
motion. Okay, I didn't hear them both. Okay, thank you.
I don't think we have any members of the public.
Doesn't look like there's any public here except for the 2 reporters.
Okay. Department head or committee chair, department head monthly reports. You got those in your packet. Any questions, comments?
Didn't get one from Dwayne this month because he was ill for a while, so he didn't get a chance to get one.
Mm.
Pam?
Yeah, I have 2 comments. I want to first say about the highway department and this last couple of snowstorms that we had that were multiple day events. They did a terrific job, and I just want to put it out there that they just really worked their tails off, did a fabulous job. And I want to thank them for that. And then the other thing I have is moving the sand to the transfer station. I've heard several positive comments from the public who are grateful that they now know exactly where to go for the sand, and people are overseeing it. And it seems a much smoother process. So thank you to Dennis for coming up with that remedy. So that's all I had.
Thank you.
I can
Terry,
concur with
did I-
all that. No, I had heard the same comments that the sand pile was working better because they actually knew where to go. And so who knew? That was a great idea.
Any other
And-
questions or comments on department heads? Okay, thank you again as usual. down to 8, unfinished business, net energy billing bid. Dennis, did you want to introduce this?
I think Adam is here. Yep, I see him. Yep. We got one bid, and he can explain it way better than I can. So I'll just turn the floor over to.
Go ahead, Adam.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. Let me just share my screen. Oh, is it possible for me to have the screen share function?
Yeah.
In the meantime, last time we spoke a few weeks ago, the idea was we were going to, great, thank you, I got it here. We're going to issue an RFP to see if we could get some vendor interest with projects that are done in the pipeline under the original net energy billing program. Just to kind of refresh a little bit what we talked about last time, the net energy billing program is extremely popular. I would almost say popular to a fault, in the sense that I don't think the state legislators quite knew how generous they were being when they created the program. And I'm also not sure that they had any expectation of how much interest would come in and how many projects would try to be built on the power grid in Maine. And, that leads to basically a really, really dense market with lots of different people trying to do projects and a lot of red tape. And I think what we tried to do on our end is, instead of trying to wade through whatever projects might be possibly coming into the future under the next version of the program, which all indications lead me to believe and vendors to believe that the rules are going to be tightened up so the projects become more expensive to build, and therefore the value passed back to the customers ultimately less. What I want to do is try to focus this RFP so we got bids from folks that have projects which are shovel ready. So shovel ready being they have their interconnection documentation in order with CMP, they have their local permitting in place, and they've got the project financing in place too. Because otherwise what you would get with an RFP like this would be a slew of what I would consider to be half-baked proposals and offers, where if you don't have those crucial pieces, you could end up committing yourself to a project that doesn't get built, and then you're effectively stuck on the sidelines waiting out that there's like, in every one of these contracts, you basically, when you sign, you give a developer a certain number of months to bring the project online. And if you commit to one that never gets built, you're basically locked out of the program for that however long that is in the contract. So we want to try to avoid putting out the bidding and getting a lot of half-baked offers back. We understand that the town had another bid on the table as well. So I guess technically you've got two options now. But we did draft the RFP, narrowly defined what we were looking for on purpose. And the results that we got back, I think, are pretty good, and they were in line, more or less with what I was hoping would be the case. So we did run that process, and from that, the two options that are currently on the table for Wiscasset are Amoresco and Revision. What they're offering is a fixed discount, and I can explain what that means, but relative to what the savings would be for the town, it creates about $25,000 per year in reduced CMP costs, with a lifetime savings kind of extrapolated out over time, based on the fact that these are 20-year agreements. The fixed discount, and just to remind everybody exactly what that means and how the net energy billing program functions. What you're agreeing to receive when you buy into a net energy billing solar program is you're getting credits on your bill. And those credits correspond back to the energy production from the array to which you've subscribed. You get a share of that production. Your share of credits is distributed monthly across your CMP bills. And in return, without having to make any investment in the solar equipment or pay any upfront costs, you simply agree to buy the credits at a discount to their value. So that spread between the credit value and the credit cost, that equals your savings in any given year. And we tend to look at these things from a yearly standpoint, because we want to try to maximize this so that the town only is subscribed to receive as many credits as they can use over one calendar year. And that's kind of how we assess the savings. A little bit about both companies. Ameresco, they are headquartered in Massachusetts, but they have a Portland office with 26 full-time employees. They were one of the first kind of early movers into the market in Maine here. Very, very strong company, very experienced. They do work throughout North America, and I think overseas as well. But importantly, I think this is relevant here, is that from Ameresco's Portland office, all of the subcontracted work would be with local Maine vendors. So there's no busing people in from out of state to do this work. I think is basically what you'd find across any company operating in Maine here. You kind of have your development team, wherever that might be located, and then the folks who are doing the actual construction work, they tend to be local contractors and experienced local contractors that have done projects like this. The Ameresco project is in Bucksport. And again, as I said, the interconnection documentation, local permitting and financing is all secured for the project. And the credits are scheduled to flow by summer 2023. The Revision Energy offer, is close, but I think there's, a meaningful gap there, and especially when you extrapolate those savings out over time, that number just starts to grow and grow and grow every year. So, again, just to touch on the fact that, there's two options here and not, 5 or 7. Had we been running this bid 18 months ago or a year ago, you probably would have had more offers, but generally speaking, anytime you can get a fixed discount, 20% or above, you're doing really well in this market. What's likely to come next in the future iteration of the program, based on the feedback that we've been getting from solar companies that are looking at projects for their future pipeline, they're looking at discount rates in the 10 to 15% range. Again, just based on some of the new requirements for participating in this program that are going to add cost to the project and therefore kind of shrink the pie for everybody. Does anybody have any questions so far about anything that I've touched on?
You bet. May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Let's assume we're using Ameresco. Will they provide all the energy that Wiscasset requires at all time?
So the important part about the net energy billing program is that you're not receiving the energy per se. So the energy itself goes back to the power grid. And this is just something, to help folks visualize how the program works. You're still going to remain connected to CMP at all times, for better or for worse. They will maintain the power lines. They'll make sure that the electrons get where they need to go. You will continue to receive your CMP bill. The only thing that'll be different is that on your bill, you'll receive dollars, which are just a function of the energy created by the array times the credit value, and that's what lands on your bill. So if you think about how the net energy billing program works, so you have the array, large centrally located ground mount array, much bigger than anything that you could put on your roof or in your backyard. And when the energy is created, it goes right back to CMP's lines. CMP and Ameresco, or any company that you'd use, meters that energy, and then through the CMP administrative office, they then assign those credits onto your bill. So all you're receiving on your bill is a $1 credit. Everything about your energy distribution system stays intact.
Will you receive another bill from Ameresco as well?
Right, you would get one additional bill per month, which would be equal to the credits that you received on your previous month's bill at that discount. So
we see 2 bills each month then, one from Ameresco and another one from CMP.
yep, you still get your CMP bills the same way that you always would. The only difference is that in the future, you would get one additional bill from Ameresco for the credits that you received the previous month. So you're only billed for the credits that you used the month prior.
Now, I guess I go back to my first question. Are we buying a portion of the energy that Ameresco generates, or does it provide all that we need?
So there were some small accounts, and I'll show you here. I can queue this up. And this was, as I try to, advise folks through the net energy billing procurement process, one of the recommendations I typically make, again, is just to try to find that sweet spot between getting the maximum value from this that you can, and while also not overcomplicating your life. And by that, I just mean we're addressing the vast majority of the accounts in town, and I have the account list, and I can show everybody what those locations are. But there are some accounts in town where the usage is so small, and sometimes zero kilowatt hours consumed throughout the year, where you just have like your $20, $30 a month customer service charge just being their customer. That, in my experience anyway, towns tend to do the best when they focus on the biggest users, and that way you don't have $2 worth of credit going here, $10 worth of credit going there, and it just helps keep your life simple.
One of the things that's important to me is we have too many separate little accounts in the town now. If we were to go with someone like Ameresco, will we get one bill or one bill for every one of those accounts?
Just one bill, one master bill from Ameresco every month. So let's say, for instance, let's say you get 30 CMP bills in any given month for each account. You wouldn't get then 30 Ameresco bills, you would just get one. If that helps clarify.
That does.
And
Thank you.
we're still going to get 30 CMP bills because we still have the delivery charge to pay. So
Yeah. I understand that. I just somehow or other wish CMP could do that all in one bill for the clerk and the treasurer. That would be a major step forward.
you and me both.
Yeah,
Yes.
and there are a lot of meters in town that there's really not much usage, but I don't think there's any real way to get around using it. It looks like some of it might just be like some exterior lights here and there, and things like that, where I don't know if you could ever really get rid of those. But yeah, it would be nice if they could consolidate and give you one bill. Let me just see. I don't want to jump up too fast here. So,
Thank you, Adam.
yeah, sure, no problem. So, again, I was going to show everybody. Let me just stop sharing and I'll share something else here. Yeah, so these were the accounts that we identified, the largest in town. It looks like there's about 15 accounts. So these would be where the credits would ultimately go. we went through every bill, looked at all of the usage, and this would be our recommendation and how we would structure it if we were making that recommendation for the town. If that's interesting at all. I mean, it's some of this is maybe not. We're just going by the address. Some of these look similar, but I figure this is at least useful information. I could circulate this around too. So going back to presentation, the way that the program is designed is that the credit values are meant to track what the CMP, the prevailing cost of energy, is for your particular rate class in CMP territory. I think the reason that the program is designed that way is because they want your credits to be in line with what you're paying on your bills. So there's some protections there against the cost of your credit being, or the value of your credit being wildly out of line with what you're paying. And then the idea behind offering a fixed discount to that is there's no scenario which your credit value and your credit costs could invert. As your cost of energy, value of energy kind of goes up, down, sideways, trends up over time, etc., your credit cost is kind of meant to move in line with that. The other option would be, if this is interesting to the town, and I think there's actually some merit behind this as well, is to opt for a fixed price instead of a fixed discount. That allows for the town to capture some more upside if the value of the credit increases, but your credit value is fixed. It does possibly present a scenario where they could be inverted, but depending on the cost of the credit, if it's low enough, I think the likelihood of that ever happening is very, very small. But again, that's a decision that basically comes down to risk, and how much you want to shoulder. I tend to lead with the idea of the fixed discount for municipalities, just because I think a lot of times there's a greater sense of comfort in having that protection on the downside, even if it means possibly capping some of your potential upside in the future. So just something to think about is how these deals can be structured if you did want to try to amp up your savings and take on what is a little bit more risk. But this is the conservative case scenario for what the annual savings would look like. So it's certainly significant, especially when you put it in context of what you're actually agreeing to do, which is simply to buy these credits over time. And in the future, if there was a situation where you wanted to put some solar on a rooftop, or if you ever wanted to lease ground space in town for an array, you could certainly do that. You could be a landlord for a solar developer if something like that ever came around. And Dennis and I have talked about possibly looking at some opportunities to do that under the next iteration of net energy billing. So maybe if that's something that the town council wants to address, we could kind of look at that too. But this would not preclude you from leasing some space in town for a solar company to come and build an array. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Dusty.
The table we're looking at here, these are example numbers, hypothetical numbers.
So this is based on your year one allocation of credits, based on, again, the energy consumption and dollar spend on the utility bills that we analyzed. You'll note that the annual kilowatt hour generated by solar falls by about 0.5% every year, just because there's degradation of the panels over time. So that's accounted for. we do in the modeling, make an assumption that there would be some modest increase in the value of the credit year over year, again, just to account for kind of natural inflation on the cost of utilities. We have a 2%, or actually, let me just double check. Is it might 1 or 2? Yeah, so I assume a 1.5% annual escalator on the value of the credit. Again, as the credit's meant to track where the cost of energy is going over time. I think 1.5% is pretty modest. If you want to be even more conservative than that, you could make the assumption that energy costs would just stay flat over time, in which case, your annual savings would look, roughly similar in year one across all years. The only difference being you'd get some natural degradation from the panel, so fewer credits. So that's the methodology we use to try to extrapolate out into the future. I usually tell people that if you're not comfortable with the idea of assuming an increase in the value or the cost of energy over time, and therefore an increase in the value of the credits, then look at your year one savings and expect, kind of set that as your baseline for what you would get over time. Future cost of future energy is obviously an open question. I think on the whole, it tends to trend upward over time, even though I think in practice it can sometimes be a little bit jagged, over the course of a year or two, just because you have fluctuations in the cost of commodities, which inevitably makes its way back into what you pay per kilowatt hour. The transmission and distribution fees from CMP, those don't ever seem to go down. So even if you get some decrease in the actual commodity price, that could be offset by, again, just kind of routine inflation related to CMP charges. So again, it's one of the good things about this program is even if the value of energy drops and therefore the credit values drop, then your discount still stays 22%. So that doesn't leave you exposed to a situation where you could be paying more for the credit than it's worth. And if the net energy billing credit values are falling, then presumably your CMP costs are falling too, which in and of itself is a good thing. Does that make sense? Do those kind of guardrails kind of how the program's designed? Was that a useful explanation?
I had several questions following that one, and you answered all of them in one throw. So,
okay. Well, I did something right today.
So the worst case scenario is that the price of energy just kind of stays put, and our savings are a little less. But if we choose the conservative option, then we're not at risk of it costing us money.
Right. Yeah, that's where the fixed discount really steps in and I think helps give people that comfort.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I like it.
For whatever it might be worth, we do this work in a number of different markets throughout the country. New England based is where I am. I'm in Connecticut, so Maine, Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island. That's kind of where I send my focus. And whether or not the state legislators in Maine knew what they were doing or they didn't, they created one of the best programs in the country for community solar, which I guess is evidenced just by the rapid influx of folks coming in and trying to build projects and stuff. So, it strikes a really good balance between creating savings, helping the overall policy goal, which is to advance the development of renewable energy assets in Maine, and also, gives folks, I think, a pretty good cushion on their CMP bills. So the ones who are fortunate enough to be able to take part in this program, because a lot of times a 20-year agreement might not be doable for a small business or even a larger business. But for a municipality, your existence is essentially guaranteed for the next 20 years. So you don't have some of those same contracting risks that, a private company would. You're also investment grade, which everybody likes from a risk perspective and stuff. So, I mean, these programs are very much designed to benefit municipalities. And I think it's usually a really good choice for folks to.
A couple of questions for you, Adam, if it's all right, Sarah.
Yeah.
The solar thing concerns me. You put the solar energy on the grid, but the grid is not a battery. And so the first concern I got is, does Ameresco, as an example, really have the capability of providing 900,000 kilowatt hours to the town of Maine? Because I'm sure there's other customers as well. And I don't know if they're committed to this 900 kilowatt hours to Wiscasset, or a portion of what they generate goes to Wiscasset.
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the array that this subscription would come from is a 5 megawatt array. So basically what this represents for Ameresco is about 20, let's just call it like 20% or so of the total available generating capacity from this array.
Well, the 5 megawatts gives us how many megawatt hours?
Yeah, so you're not taking the whole project.
Okay.
Yeah, Wiscasset would just be taking about somewhere between 15 to 20% of the larger project.
Now, what happens if we have some really bad weather and you cannot provide the 900,000? It automatically comes from CMP?
Yeah, so you will always, no matter what, your energy will be, the actual electrons will be delivered to you by CMP, no matter what. The only case, like if there was a case where the array, because I mean, you'll naturally get some fluctuation in production every year just because of weather. That's a variable that nobody can control. But even worst case scenario, if the array was down for maintenance, or every couple of years they'll have to like refurbish the inverters and stuff like that, you would never even know, because the power delivery system is set up where CMP is still doing it, quote unquote, the old-fashioned way. So if there's any concern that there could be risk to the power delivery for town, that would not be the case. The only situation in which you'd have a power interruption in town is if the actual grid has an outage, which would be independent of the array itself.
Now, the savings, is that guaranteed? Or it's really a proportion of the power you provide?
Yeah, so the guarantee is effectively that discount. So that discount represents, the real kind of the heart of the transaction here, where you get a credit, you pay for that credit, and there's a guaranteed spread between the credit value and the credit cost. In terms of guarantees, what I've seen on these deals is the developer will guarantee a certain amount of production, with the caveat being that we're going to get some natural fluctuation every year just due to weather. So nailing it to the kilowatt hour is not something that people do, but they'll guarantee like a significant percentage, like 80% as a for instance, of annual production every year, those benchmarks that they have to hit. And if they don't, that there would be a true up payment.
Well, I'm kind of excited about the town saving $25,000 a year. That's a significant amount. I guess the problem that I have is knowing that that solar energy is more expensive than the conventional means we use today, who pays the bill? And I think that most solar energy systems can only survive with subsidies from the state and federal government. And so I end up paying for it in my own bill somehow or other, in either in taxes or an increased rate somewhere along the way. So yes, the town would save money, but I'm thinking I'm going to end up paying for it myself somehow or other. How would you respond to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, a few things. One, and this is a loaded issue, right? And I normally don't wade into the policy questions, but that's okay. I don't mind doing it. I think what you'd find on a cost per watt basis at this point, solar is just about on par with the traditional forms of energy that, the state's relied on for a long time. The only exception being some of the, large like hydro plants. Those, the cost of energy associated with those is generally pretty low. But in terms of the cost of energy from like a natural gas fired power plant, as for instance, the cost to build new solar and the cost to buy energy from those plants is just about kind of on par. So I don't think there's a big surcharge coming from that end of things. I think ratepayer and taxpayer funded programs, the impact to the average customer, I think, is pretty small. I've seen estimates, the average residential, ratepayer over the course of a month could be from anywhere from like, $5 to $10. And this program is available for residential folks too. So if you want to offset whatever you might be paying, you could do it that way too. But I think, from a policy perspective and bringing the grid kind of into the modern era, being mindful of how we address climate change and, without getting like political or anything, I think the goal here is to try to drive this process through, private investment to keep as many taxpayer dollars out of it as possible, but also open up the opportunity to taxpayers and to ratepayers to also be a beneficiary of it too. So I think you end up coming out way ahead if you can participate. This legislation's already here. I always tell people like, there's no sense in protesting it's already here, right? So what's the most, kind of responsible thing you can do, which if you have access to it, and I think it makes a lot of sense to use it.
Well, the real question I got is how much is it going to cost me? Now, the data I had from the Department of Energy said that hydroelectric generation cost, total cost, levelized cost of electricity from hydroelectric was 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Coal, gas, and oil were on the order of 4 to 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Solar was up at 11 cents a kilowatt hour. It's almost 3 times what we would pay for some of the other conventional means. And somehow or other, that has to get paid. Now, I agree with you here. This is a great savings for the town. But somehow or other, I'm going to end up paying my part of that. And I guess, like you said, the legislation is in place. There's probably nothing I can do about it. But the way inflation is going, almost everything that I'm buying is higher now. And I see this as being a contributor to some of my other costs. And that's not much I can do about that, but that's what I see. Thank you, Adam.
Sure.
Any other questions for Adam? Dennis, and then Dusty, and then Kim?
Adam, is there any, aside from some of Ed's concerns, is there any downside to the town for this? I mean, are we going to get, if we decide 5 years from now that, we don't like doing this, and I don't know why we would, but if we do, is it going to cost us something to get out of it?
So the major I guess you could say just the reality of these deals is when you sign this agreement, you're committing to buy these credits for that contract term, which is 20 years. There are ways to exit the agreement, but they involve transferring these credits to a different party. And what I tell people is, while that is certainly possible, and a big advantage, frankly, relative to like an on-site solar PPA, where if you've got those panels on your roof and that equipment is installed, there's nowhere else to send that energy. So you are 100% fully committed at that point. But Ameresco would have the ability to redirect these credits to a different customer. It just comes down to, can they do that? Is it, how easy will that be, to do that in time? And that's an open question. It would depend on their ability to find another buyer that way. Because at the end of the day, Ameresco or any other company, they'll have this multi-million-dollar investment, and the way that they're recouping their costs on the investment is through the sale of these credits. So they need somebody to buy the credits. If they can't, if there's no one else that can, that's certainly an issue. So I always tell everybody, like, even though you have the ability to reassign these credits, I would consider this to be a commitment that you're making for that 20-year period. I think that's just the most reasonable thing that you can do. And much like if you had like an energy commodity contract for your supply, there are termination values that correspond back to the value of the energy that's still kind of out there that Ameresco was anticipating selling to you. I just think for everybody's sake, the best thing you can do is, make that commitment kind of, mentally, and be kind of prepared to ride it out over the contract term.
Thank you.
Dusty, do you have another question?
Yeah, there was one other question I had on this, the 900,000 kilowatt hours. Is that going to be our allocation, or is that there for an example as well? And if we were to say, just hypothetically build more facilities and our energy usage went over 900,000, what would that be out of the program, and we would be paying regular rates for that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this allocation is based on, so basically the way this works is, you allocate your percentage of the array's output based on its, year one production. So relative to the energy consumption and the dollars spent on those accounts that I, briefly showed everybody before, 900,000 kilowatt hours year one would be, the allocation that I'd recommend. Anything that, like, if for instance the town built like a rec center or another building, right? So added more consumption. You have really two options at that point. You could reallocate some of your credits from one account to this new account. Like, say for instance, you had again, I'm just totally hypothetical. You had an old town hall and you were going to build a new town hall, and you ultimately knocked the old town hall down and moved into the new one. Then you could reallocate those credits to the new facility. That's not an issue. Or if you had, like I said in the example of like a totally new building, like a rec center or whatever, and you want to take some credits from one location and apply them there, you could do that too. In the instance where you didn't want to reallocate any credits, you want to, keep what you had where you had it, and you did add consumption, then what you would have to do is, whenever that happened, you would basically have to see, is there a net energy billing program or an equivalent out there at the moment that's accepting, new entrants. And you would basically just have to add that on to its own standalone deals. Because once these initial allocations are set, unless in the unlikely occurrence that Ameresco has spare capacity on this array or another array, but presumably on this one, then what you contract for in year one is what you get. There's no simple way to just expand that, just because the production from the array, once it's set, I mean, it's finite. The system's built, you get your share, and that's that. But there's nothing that would preclude you from in the future, if there's another program, net energy billing phase 2, et cetera, where you could try to grab additional credits and apply them to that new location. Or if any of these existing facilities, if all of a sudden the energy use starts to expand greatly, then you could add more through an additional project that might be available in the future.
Thank you.
Kim, did you have a question?
I did. So Ameresco looks like the better deal in your presentation financially. Is there any other consideration that we should give towards Revision Energy as to why we maybe would want to choose that company over Ameresco? Or do you think Ameresco, do you think that the dollar savings is the sole consideration?
Yeah, I mean, I think all things equal, the strength of the counterparty, like the strength of the developer, like the financial strength, it accounts for something. And I mean, Ameresco is a kind of hands down bigger, kind of better capitalized company. They're, from that standpoint, that would give me some comfort that we don't have any questions about the kind of the future financial health of the company that we're doing business with. So from a scale perspective, I think Ameresco is a little bit of a safer bet. And at the end of the day, if you've got two equally good projects and two equally qualified companies, and you take the company size bit away, then this really comes down to just like a question of driving the maximum savings from the process, I think, in which case the Ameresco deal would outperform the Revision offer.
Is either one of them more local than the other, or?
Well, I mean, Revision is headquartered in Maine. They're kind of Maine, New Hampshire, headquartered in Maine and New Hampshire. Ameresco is Massachusetts with, an office in Portland. I think when it comes down to the construction jobs, a lot of times when people talk about, who benefits from these things in terms of employment and local economies and things like that, I think you're going to find that both companies are going to use Maine subcontractors to do a lot of the actual construction work. Something kind of interesting too, because this came up in another situation. I was another bid I was running for a municipality in Maine, where the groups that ultimately own the assets that Revision build, there are hedge funds that are located in New York and California. So if you're thinking about where's the money, you have the construction job piece, and then you have the investment returns, where does that all go? I just thought it was kind of interesting that, I think Revision kind of leads with this, we're Maine, we're local. But the folks that own the arrays that they build are in New York and LA. So it's, at the end of the day, it's if you got two equally good projects and, you're equally comfortable with both companies, it's there's, in my mind anyway, there's no sense in reducing your savings so you can benefit, investors in New York and California.
Thank you. I have one last question. This one's for Dennis. Dennis, do we need to decide this tonight?
Well, I guess that was going to be my question back to Adam, if this was something that we needed to decide tonight, or if we had 2 weeks.
So from my perspective, you guys can take whatever time that you need. This might mirror a little bit what we talked about the very first time that we got together, which is, as you can tell from the RFP, project inventory and like good project inventory is pretty tight. My suggestion would be, because I know Ameresco it's kind of like if this was like a Zillow listing or something, it's like there are other customers in the market that are thinking about doing this, and I can never account for them, right? So I don't know what the other activity would be that would, might step in front. But, I think if you can make a decision by the next town council meeting, you'd be fine. And I can tell Ameresco that, you just want to take another session to make a call. And I'm sure that they'd be fine with that.
And is there, I know we have the PowerPoint, but is there an actual like contract or?
Yeah, so there's a contract that was included in the RFP response. And I could also talk to Ameresco to see, for some of the RFPs that we've run for municipalities, they've won a couple of them, and not sure which attorneys the town uses, but we've had an agreement with Ameresco that's been pretty heavily negotiated with Drummond Woodson. I know that a lot of
I was bringing that up because we really need to see that before we would make any kind of
Oh,
decision.
100%. Yeah, and that's part of the RFP package that Ameresco submitted. So I'll circulate that to Dennis. No problem. That's
Okay.
natural, part of the process for making decisions and stuff. So
And I wouldn't ask you guys to sign a contract without having the attorney take a look at it first anyways.
yeah, which firm do you guys use?
Bernstein Shore.
Okay. Yeah, I think it worked with them too. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, a lot of municipal attorneys have been through this process before, and these contracts are not there's not as much of a learning curve as there was 2 years ago. But yeah, again, I'll take the time that you need. I'll make sure that Dennis has a copy of the contract.
Actually, I think you've sent it to me already.
Okay. I'll make sure that I did.
Yeah.
Terry, did you have a question?
Yes. Were we actually intending on voting tonight to go to contract, not to sign the contract, but to express our intent to take this deal, which everything I've heard about it, especially when I hear, future deals are going to be like 16% or less. And here we are at 22%. I think dawdling on these things is sometimes what towns do when they shouldn't. Moving the process along, letting them know, yeah, we like their presentation. We want to go with Ameresco, for example, instead of the other one. So we're choosing who we want to go with. It would be important to indicate that we want this particular contract with this particular discount, and send it to our lawyers and get it all tied down. Say by the next time we meet, can the lawyers do things in 2 weeks?
I think I can get it done, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of what I was suggesting, is that we have a contract to look at for next time.
What a lot of municipalities do is, like, in situations like this where they want to kind of take that capacity like off the market, but they don't want to commit to anything yet, is basically to say, hey, we're giving you a contingent award that,
Right.
barring, the fact that we have to get through this agreement, we like your offer. We want to take it to the next step. And, you know, they'll take it off the market while you negotiate the agreement. And if you can't terms on the agreement, then there's no penalties, no break, you know, there's nothing. It's just, okay, we tried, we got there, we didn't get there, whatever, but at least you know that capacity is, you know, temporarily off the market while you work through the details of the actual contract. So, you know, that would be one approach that you could take too.
Madam Chairman, that's really what I would like to do.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Sarah and everyone, I feel like we've been dawdling, so
I do too.
Moving it forward. Let's go.
Okay, Ed, one last one, then we're gonna,
Just a quick question. Is this another one that has to go to the voters?
it already has.
Okay, thank you.
Dusty,
I was concerned that the select board has not yet seen the contract. And I was getting concerned that we would commit to something without even reading the contract. And I was also concerned that there is no termination clause in the contract from what Adam said. So I just leave that for the selectmen.
yep. And that's exactly why I said we're not voting tonight, is because we don't have a contract to even look at yet, so.
Thank you.
Dusty,
Yeah, and I like to read contracts, Ed, so I've got my questions answered. I just wanted to state an opinion about the fixed discount. I think all the various inputs into the price of energy over the next 20 years, I wouldn't want to gamble on that. I would want to go with the fixed discount option. So
Agreed.
agreed. Okay, so did we want to make some sort of motion to the effect of what Terry was saying in terms of expressing our interest to move forward?
Yeah.
With Amoresco, and in effect, ask him to take that house off the market while we come up with a contract.
Sarah, do you want a motion?
Yeah, I'm just not sure how it should be worded.
So maybe you could do it like.
So
you're-
I would
like if-
move,
Yeah.
move that the town of Wiscasset contingently award the bid to Amoresco Solar Savings, and that's contingent upon the board's approval through their legal advice on the contract. That's pretty comprehensive.
second,
Third.
I hope, Jackie, I hope you got that all.
Moved by Pam and seconded by Dusty. Any further discussion? Obviously, we can have more discussion with the contract as well next time.
Great.
Okay. All right, calling for a vote. Terry,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Dusty,
yes.
Kim.
Yeah.
I vote yes. 5-0, motion passes. Thank you, Adam.
Thank
Thank
everybody.
you,
I'm sure I'll
Adam.
see you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, see ya.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, so moving down to number 9, new business monthly financials. Any questions or discussion on those? Okay, hearing none. 9B, CMP poll permit. And I'll ask that you read out the whole motion if you're gonna make the motion.
I move to approve the Central Maine Power Pole Permit application for work order number 801000442-925.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Moved by Pam, seconded by Dusty. Any questions or discussion? I know Dennis had provided some extra information for us in his report on this.
I'm thrilled that we're doing something to bury lines instead of having all these lines. I wish we could bury them all over town. You know,
I agree.
that's it. Okay. Let's go.
Okay. All right, calling for a vote. Terry,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
I vote yes, motion passes 5-0. Okay, now to 9C, bill of sale. Again, please read the full motion.
I move to execute the bill of sale of a mobile home located at 1051 Gardner Road, lot number 28, to Whitney Bellew. Or Beaulieu.
Second.
Moved by Pam, seconded by Terry. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none. Calling for a vote. Terry,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Moving down to 9D, use of town property policy discussion. So as the liaison to the ORC, I just wanted to mention one thing on here that Dennis has also addressed. I unfortunately was not able to be fully present at the last meeting that they had for this, otherwise I would have mentioned it, is the piece about it was not really the intention to be taking away the approval of community center approvals, the authority for community center approvals from Dwayne. So I would suggest that that while this should apply to all of those facilities in terms of the policy itself, we as a select board do not need to be approving rental of the pool, for example. So.
Yeah.
Other questions or discussion? I know, oh, the other piece was under the vent restrictions, it's got grills inside or outside, and I don't know if Dwayne, if you're still on, if you want to address this. I just couldn't think of an instance in which you would ever want to grill inside or why it would need to be inside.
Sadly, you really have to tell people this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we don't have any use. The only use that we have of a grill inside is the grill and stove and that unit at the senior center.
Okay, that's what I thought. So we could take out the inside part.
Yes.
Okay. Dennis?
I think my only comment on this would be that we might want to add a section referencing our temporary business license for use on town property. There's no reference to that in here. So if you have a group that comes along and wants to advertise or peddle or sell something, you need to get a temporary business license. So I think we just need to reference that back to our ordinance so that we make sure that gets covered as well. And that covers all the areas that, at least was my intention from this policy anyways, that the selectmen have to give approval to. And the ordinance did not cover the community center in there. So, but this would clean that up. So I think we just need to add that reference into it.
Good
Other
idea.
questions or?
I have a question.
Yes, Jackie.
I want to know who approves everything else? Do the selectmen approve everything else except for things that are happening at the community center?
Yes.
Okay, and how do they approve it? Do you have to apply? For instance, Summerfest writes a letter every year to get permission, but the garden club doesn't. And when they use the meeting room for their flower sale.
Pam?
Yeah, I would say that has been the practices in the past, but the practice going forward now that we have an application in place, that these institutions will have to fill out the application just as anyone else. So possibly the town, probably Dennis, could get a list of those organizations who have used town property in the past and habitually, and give them a notice that an application is necessary in future.
I have another question. About
Yep.
fees. Are you going to charge everybody, or are you going to let nonprofits rent-free.
That's addressed in the film. Under the list of where the pricing would be, it says the select board has the authority to waive fees.
Right. Well, I'm
So
just asking.
That would be up to the Board of Selectmen at the time as the application was processed.
Well, and currently we don't charge for a number of the places on the list.
Right. I was just wondering if that should be in the policy so that people would know ahead of time, or those people that are applying.
I guess I would personally like to keep the select board has the authority to waive the fees in terms of keeping it flexible.
Right, but you don't want to put down fees.
Well,
put down the
there
number.
are, Dwayne, correct me if I'm wrong, there are specific fees for all the community center rentals, correct?
Yes.
So those would need to be filled in. Pam?
So possibly where it says facility rental fees to be determined by select board, maybe it should have there that it's are set on a pay schedule, so that the schedule, if it changes, you don't have to adopt this policy all the time. You would just be able to update your fee schedule and attach the fee schedule to this.
Kind of what I was asking, if there would be a fee set ahead of time.
Right, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I mean,
Jackie,
there
I
are
wasn't
fees.
just-
Yeah, there are fees already, so just do a copy of the fee schedule and put it with this.
Yeah, Jackie, I wasn't saying don't put fees. I just meant don't put that there are exceptions for X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
I guess, Dennis, what's your opinion on the easiest way to do this?
I think that's fine. That allows the maximum flexibility to the select board. You're not tying yourself into anything. I mean, typically we don't charge anybody for using town property other than the community center anyways. And if you're gonna have somebody use like Scout Hall or something like that, like we did with the driver's ed people that never ended up using it anyways, they're gonna have to sign a kind of a lease agreement that's gonna go along with that anyhow. So, this is more for day use than it is for a long-term thing. So.
Terry?
First, do we anticipate a lot of select board items where we're going to be approving this little thing and that little thing based on this policy? And the reason I ask is, if it's going to be a busy thing, why are we taking? Why are you interested in us holding the authority instead of visiting that authority or vesting it in Dennis?
Because your ordinance says that you shall give the permission to do it.
Well, we could change that ordinance, of course. I'm just asking.
I mean, it's if it's not the community center pieces, it's really not very often.
That's what I needed to know.
Kim?
Can we just give a blanket authorization to the town manager to manage this stuff? And then another comment or question, would it make sense to explicitly exclude the community center from this policy and just have the community center do its thing? So there's no confusion. I don't have, rates for renting the pool attached to this policy. That doesn't make sense.
No, because part of the reason why we wrote this policy is so they would have guidance in terms of use of alcohol. So I think, at least from where I'm sitting, they need to be following the same policy
They can
in terms of the rules.
They could follow the policy, but like say you were seeking a town property to rent, you shouldn't go look at this policy to determine like what your fee is going to be. If you want to have a party at the rec, you go to the community center and you talk to Dwayne.
Right, but I'm saying that person would still need to not have bounce houses, and they would have to bring their own license for alcohol. Like, see what I'm saying? That was part of the point of why this even came
Well,
up.
Dwayne would follow that policy, but not every renter. Like
Well, I guess to me, that's the same thing.
Yeah. See,
I think we could clean up the language in the policy a little bit that just directs them to Dwayne if it's going to be at the community center.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Dennis.
and directs them to us if it's going to be anything else. So I
Yeah.
think we could just clean that up a little bit.
I don't want
How about
people
if you-
coming in front of the select board to argue about why they can't have a bounce house and a pony at their kids'
Right.
party down at the rec. Like, let's not do that.
but they can't.
Right, but they can't.
No, but
So-
that's
so-
something they would talk to Dwayne about, not us. I don't know if you guys are getting my point. I'm saying let's authorize the town manager to manage the town stuff other than the community center. Let's authorize Dwayne to manage the community center stuff. Everyone, Dennis, Dwayne, whoever takes their place in the future follows this policy, but I don't think the select board needs to be managing these like town rentals.
I don't disagree. I
How
guess
about
I
if they all
just,
go through,
go ahead, Dwayne.
how about if they all go through the rec? Doesn't matter where it is in town.
It's
Ooh, I like that.
Pam?
like, again, we have an ordinance that says it's a duty of the select.
Ah,
I mean, I really,
I believe that's what Dennis just said, is the ordinance says it's a duty of the select board.
If you give him the authority and he could give me the authority and we could set up the rental agreements throughout the town, anything outside of the community center can still be given a copy to the selectmen so that they have an idea of what's going on within the town.
And then if the future you get some other select board that wants to micromanage every little thing, they can, right? So we're not giving that away, but I think that that's something that we could give away. We don't have to do that.
I mean, I guess if that fits the ordinance, I'm fine with doing that. I'm really not disagreeing with you here. I'm just saying everybody needs to be following the same rules.
Right?
So Dennis, is that
He's
in
reading it.
the spirit of the ordinance? If
Yeah,
you are
I think so.
authorized,
Why don't you let me look a little bit and clean this language up some and we'll revisit it at the next board meeting. Is that okay?
yeah, although, can we temporarily authorize, I know there's an event with alcohol on Friday, right? Dwayne, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Can we approve for that or something? I just want to be,
Yes, there's no reason you can't.
Pam?
Yeah, so have the people that are having the event, Dwayne, are the people that are having the event on Friday, did they fill out this application?
I know that Water Street has gone through and done all the paperwork as far as the alcohol goes. Yes.
Okay, okay. So I would say since this application process has not yet been voted by the board, then it's not the board business right now. It's the community center's business until this application is passed. So I don't think what's happening at the community center on Friday is any of our business.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure everybody was covered.
Yeah. Well, if we haven't voted this application and a practice into place, then it's still what it was before. It's Dwayne make the decision.
Okay, Kim?
Yeah, so there's an event with alcohol this Friday. Can you tell us about that, please?
Are we invited?
It's the paint night. It's canvases with cocktails. It's a part of the fundraiser for the Cooper DePerry
Right.
Skull.
Terrific, terrific. I'm sorry I missed that. That sounds like an awesome time. Thank you.
Okay, so Dennis, you'll come back to us with a revised version then.
Yeah, I'll clean this up and have it for you next time.
All right, down to number 10, town manager's report. Anything you want to add, Dennis, or any questions folks have?
I don't think I have a whole lot to add. I did have a conversation with, I know, I've been telling you about the issues out at Mason Station. I did have a conversation with Ransom last week about that, and they've had some conversations with EnviroVantage as to where they stand with that. I wasn't real happy with my end of the conversation with them, but there's more conversation that needs to be had there. What they're asking for a change order for some of their downtime because of the rainfall this fall is, I think is unreasonable. So I'm kind of holding a little bit firm before I bring anything to you guys to say, I think they need to haul their horns in here a little bit. So that's still ongoing. I did also get another phone call today from Wright Pierce about the Old Ferry Road project. They've sent that off to the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps has decided to send it off to NOAA, which means we're going to get bogged down in a whole lot more bureaucracy into trying to get this thing done. So we were hoping to get it done sometime in the July to September timeframe, and now it's looking more like November to next April sometime because of the NOAA thing. So we are going to try to push that along and see if we can't get the Army Corps to maybe change its mind to get this done, but because every delay is just going to add to the cost of this, and we just can't keep putting it off and putting it off.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Dennis. Moving down to other board business. So first thing was talking about in-person meetings. A couple of folks asked if I could put this on the agenda again to talk about. I mean, the numbers are all over the place. Some folks are releasing mask mandates. I know we had talked about investing in some speakers / electronics, and I know Dennis had started to do some research on that in terms of making it a better experience for people who aren't comfortable coming to the meetings. So I guess other thoughts on folks' comfort level?
I'm fine with in-person meetings.
I am too.
Pam?
Yeah, I'd be fine with in-person meetings, preferably not at the community center where the microphones are too close to the speakers. It does not work.
Yeah, no, I should
The
have,
microphones are too close to speakers. You just get continuous feedback. It's a nightmare.
No,
I
me-
should have clarified that. I mean, at the town meeting, like
Yeah.
regular,
Yep,
Like-
whatever that is.
no problem.
Terry?
So, are we in masks?
Your choice.
I would
Actually-
prefer that we are, given that it's still CDC recommendations, given the county levels, but
I would
I'm-
follow the recommendations, whatever they are. That's fine.
Terry, were you going to say something?
I'm interested in another location that is not quite so small as in Town Hall. I'm interested in perhaps the gym over here in the elementary school. And the reason for that is I'm interested in encouraging the town to be able to come, be separated, 6 feet apart or 10 feet apart or wherever, but to encourage more participation by the town.
I think we're
Go
I
ahead.
think we're gonna run in to the same electronic and sound issues we do at the community center.
So
So, Kim, and then Dusty, and then Dennis.
This is just a thought, and we don't have to. I wouldn't want this to prevent us from getting back together as soon as possible in the town meeting room. But school board meetings are not recorded or broadcast at all. It would be neat if somehow the town and the school board could get together and set something up in a bigger space, maybe in the school where you could have meetings and have more people and have it, always set up so that it's as simple as turning on the equipment at the town meeting room. And then that way, like, we could benefit, there would be more space, and also people could be able to participate in school board, because that's also important.
Very good comment.
Dusty,
I agree, but I wanted to hear what Dennis was going to say.
Dennis?
well, I guess, backing up to Kim's comment, which I think is actually a pretty good idea, before I invest in any audio visual equipment, I guess I would need to figure out where that space is going to be, because it will probably be different than what I was thinking about for the meeting room here. I actually was thinking, I don't know if any of you have seen them. I know Kim has. It's called a meeting owl.
Mhm.
They have one up at the planning office that we used the other day, and it looks like a cone, but it does kind of look like an owl. It's got two little cameras that circle around, but it has a 360-degree camera up on the top. And it actually turns constantly and focuses on whoever is speaking, which is kind of cool compared to a fixed camera, which is, not going to focus in on everything. The only problem, and this might be better too, because I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to do it in the meeting room, because it does require like a TV for the board to be able to see who's participating remotely. And I haven't figured out yet where I'm going to put the TV where it's not going to block the people that are actually in the back of the room from seeing the board. So where did the school board normally meet? What rooms? What?
In the library,
Yeah.
at high school.
They meet in the library, which is, I mean, you can fit a lot of people in there. It's not ideal though. It's got the circulation desk is right in the center of the room. So I don't know.
The primary school cafeteria is not bad. In terms of space, it's a bit more open. Okay, guess that one died in the water.
Well, it would be.
I like it. I love it.
Nice sound, Sarah.
Sorry.
Well, we could have lunch at the same time. So
Fish sticks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Could we have our next meeting though at the meeting room while we continue to work out this other issue?
Yeah, I'd like that.
I would too.
Yeah, and I mean, at the very worst, I'm happy to bring my computer and have it in front of me and announce who's on there and when they're speaking.
I mean,
Like,
it's
do the best we can in terms of remote participation if there's public.
it's up to you guys. I mean, it's important that you be able to hear and speak to somebody. It's less important that you be able to look at them, but they have to be able to participate,
Yeah.
to have that back and forth. So, I mean, if the rest of the board is fine with not having the TV and seeing who's there and just hearing them, that does make it a little easier and cheaper.
So we're not going to let the public come in, or are we just trying to enable people to join?
If you're meeting in person, you can't ban them. They have to be allowed to come.
So for next meeting, would it be all right with everyone if we just went back to the way we used to do it? So we air the meeting on YouTube and people can watch, but if they have to say something, they got to drive down to the office and stand at the podium.
I would like us to, like I said, at the very least, have the computer in front of me and they can join on Zoom. I know, I hate hybrid more than anyone on the earth, I think, but I also just really don't want to cut people out because they're not comfortable health-wise coming inside. Because we're not at a point, like I guess for me personally, once we're at a point where masks are no longer required anywhere, that's the point in which I feel like, yeah, then you really should be coming in person. But
Okay.
I don't know, that's where I'm at.
I think that's fine. I think we're anticipating those changes to be made in the next like 2 or 3 weeks at school. Like we're expecting a change in the SOP, specifically about masks to follow CDC guidelines. I think on February 25th or 26th, there's a big change that's about to happen. So that may even occur before our next meeting. So
Okay.
I just remember our last hybrid meeting was lousy with the capital, all caps, lousy.
You just don't have the audio video equipment for it. You need the right equipment. And I think that's where that meeting owl would be ideal.
So as much as I would really like to go back to in-person meetings, and I was one of the two who was asking you to, let's discuss this tonight. Why don't we just hold off until I think that you would be more comfortable, especially Sarah, if we actually had that lifting of the mandate before we get back together. Is that sort of where you are?
I mean, I don't want to delay. The thing is, I'm personally comfortable being back in the room. I just don't want to lose, I don't want other public members to feel like they cannot access the meeting because they are a compromised person and therefore don't feel comfortable.
I agree, which is why I wanted the bigger room. That is exactly what where I was going with that, so that everybody could feel comfortable. I don't think people can feel comfortable in our small town hall room. I think it's going to be that way for a long time. So
Yeah,
maybe we
maybe.
can have this discussion further about where other places are that we could meet, that would be more open.
Well, Kim, you said there's new guidance coming out the end of the month?
Yeah, we're expecting an update to the SOP and, word on the superintendent street is that there will be changes to guidance around universal masking versus not universal masking. So like currently, if we have universal masking, we don't have to do any contact tracing. We don't have to, make anyone quarantine. Currently, if we were to take that away, then someone gets sick, we have to do all the contact tracing, and that's really labor intensive and disruptive for students. And so we are thinking that over February break, they're going to write a new SOP, which is based on CDC guidelines, which says that you don't have to do the contact tracing with or without universal masking, and leave that up to a school board choice. And then at that point, it's pretty likely a lot of school boards are going to take away their universal masking requirements. But it's all like hinged on what's going to come down from Maine CDC and DOE. And so I feel like if that's what, and you already are hearing it, right? That CDC is talking about doing away with masks and masking at the federal level. So I think if we just sit tight, these things are going away soon.
So what if we make a decision at our next meeting? How would people feel about that? See what the next guidance is, and then if we want to also brainstorm some ideas for if there is a better location that's bigger. Dennis?
You want me to contact probably John Mary and see if we can use something, if there's something that's going to consistently be available at the school? Because I don't want to take it. I don't think it's a good idea for us to take a meeting room and find out that we can use it for 5 weeks, but in the 8th week, we got to go somewhere else because they have something there. That will just confuse people. So
I think it's worth the shot. Pam?
Yeah, one other thought is if you really wanted to use a spot that we've already used, like the community center, is there a way to get those microphones away from the equipment in the back of the room? Because they're just, and the problem with the feedback is the microphones are too close to the speakers. So can we put the speakers on the other side of the building? Can you wire them up further back away from, instead of directly behind the people holding the microphones, can you send them out away? And maybe Dwayne, if you could do some testing on that and see if you can get them far enough away so that feedback stops. And speak into them with the microphone 3 or 4 inches from your face, because that's how people speak to them instead of putting them up like they're supposed to. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you could try with it, because it's just because they're too close to each other.
Yeah, we can take a look at it.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think for the board anyways, Dwayne, we might want to look at lapel mics instead of the handheld mics. But if we're gonna look to buy some audio video equipment and we want to use the gym, this will be a chance for us to upgrade the audio video equipment at the community center anyways. I guess my question to Dwayne would be, is it going to be a hardship for us have our meetings there every other Tuesday? Because I don't want to limit we're trying to generate revenue for the community
Right.
center. We don't want to cut down on your availability.
No, Tuesdays would actually be a decent day, because Mondays and Thursdays we have karate. Wednesdays we have a fitness class. Tuesdays right now, we did have basketball going on throughout the winter, but it's now over. So, I mean, it's definitely doable. Tuesday is the better day if you were gonna look at it that way.
So why don't
Okay.
Dwayne and I get together and see what we can come up with on some better audio video equipment for up
Yep.
there.
Okay. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay. Thank you. All right, and then budget workshops. So the doodle poll we all filled out. Somehow the only day that we all had in common was March 12th. So the Saturday, so that will definitely be one of our days. I guess what I'm suggesting is we either need to think about, so we normally do like a 9 to noon. So my suggestion is we either do that, take a break for lunch and come back for a couple hours, or folks are gonna have to do some moving of schedules to get an evening, because the most we had for any other evenings was 3 of us. And I would like to try to honor schedules as much as I can, because I know we've all got crazy ones. So I don't know how folks feel about, I mean, I know spending the entire Saturday doing budget is not the most fun thing in the world, but I wonder if that would make sense just in terms of knocking a whole bunch out. Terry?
Yes, could we get it all over with in one day? I mean, talk about concentration. You kind of want to stay with it until you're done, and breaking it up on 2 different days makes no sense to me.
Sam?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to come in and spend an entire Saturday and get as much done as we can. That would be fine by me. It's actually previous boards that I were on, we did that quite often.
Kim?
I know that in the past we've, in fact, every year that I've been on the board, which isn't that many years, but you know, we look at the budget and then we have to send it back for revisions and changes, and then it comes back to us again. So if we're going to get it all done on one day, do we need to see it in advance and send our questions? Like how does that work, Dennis?
So I actually have a little bit of a different presentation for you guys this year than what's been done in the past. Because in the past, all you've been given is a spreadsheet with numbers on it. I've spent some time putting together a pretty comprehensive budget book for you guys that you will have at least 2 weeks ahead of time to read and digest and have plenty of information going into this meeting instead of having to wait for the meeting to get the information. And if we do this and you want to do it either here or Zoom, either way, I plan to be in this office. So if there's any revisions, I can sit at this computer and I can put them in. You know, I'm not criticizing past managers, but they didn't get into Trio like I do. I can get into Trio. I can make the changes right then and there, and then bring it back to you and say, here's what it looks like with the changes, and not say, well, we'll have to bring them up for the next meeting. So I'm not saying we could get it all done in one day, but I think you guys will be pretty comfortable if you spend this one day that you might have an evening, maybe 2, that you would have to clean some stuff up. So.
Right.
And any evening except every other Wednesday for me. But any other evening, if we need one, I'm fine.
Well, I figure we can do that day, see where we are at the end of the day, and then make a decision.
And
Sounds great.
yeah, and I'd be fine coming into the town office and doing it right in the meeting room if the board wants to do it that way. Sometimes discussions are easier in person, but it's whatever works for everybody else.
Dennis?
The only thing that I would ask is that for this first initial meeting, is that we do it as a joint meeting with the budget committee so that everybody has the same information all at the same time. And I'm not in myself, I'm not having to repeat myself in 2 different meetings all over again. So if you guys would accommodate me on that, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. So the 12th it is.
At 8 o'clock? What time did you
Oh, I knew Kim's face was gonna do that.
I was going with 9, but
Oh, all right. I'm up at 5 at the very latest every morning.
Oh.
9 is like the middle of the day to me.
My dogs get me up at 4:30 every morning, so.
There you
I'm
go.
also up early, but I like do a lot of things around that I would like to do around at home on the weekend. Like
I love
Yeah,
it.
no,
We're
I was
all
thinking-
up early.
9 to noon, break for lunch, come back at 1 or 1:30 and go for a couple more hours.
Until 3 or 4?
That would mean 3 more hours, but
maybe we could do a working
Oh.
lunch, Sarah. Like we could,
Yeah.
order something in, and we could, or everyone could pack a lunch, and we could just go straight through.
okay, I just want to have some break for folks because I know, at least personally, I want to like go outside and walk around for a second or whatever.
We can do
Okay.
that. We can do that.
We can walk and talk, Sarah. We're getting it done. No.
I can't walk and chew gum, so you guys are asking a lot.
Hmm.
All right.
Walking it out. What is?
Any other board business for this evening?
Good meeting.
I will not be in the office tomorrow morning. I have an appointment in Portsmouth that I need to get down to, a physical that I've put off for so many times, and the snowstorm the last time canceled it, so.
I'd like to say it's good to see Dwayne back. I hope everything's good, Dwayne.
All right, open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Moved by Pam, seconded by Terry. Calling for a vote. Terry,
yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes.
Kim.
Yep.
I vote yes. We are adjourned at 7:39. Thank you, everyone.
I'll.
Thank you, Sarah.
Night.
Have a good night.